Hello and welcome to another episode of Abbey the Podcast Lady. Today I am so excited. My new friend Paul is joining us, and we met through the Podmatch platform. You've heard me mention it before. It is a great tool if you're looking to get some really cool guests on your podcast. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, Abby. I'm looking forward to the chat. Should be fun.
I am so excited to get into your business, your podcast, everything you do, because I'm just going to nerd out for a second here. I work with
Yay.
a creative marketing company on their show. It's called Behind the Brand. And so I've just learned so much about really good marketing. And you have just this beautiful brand that you've built that is so cohesive. It looks so good. Your website is amazing, even down to the backdrop of your video call right now. It is also on brand. So give me like a 10,000 foot overview. Who are you? What do you do?
I am Paul Pape. I'm known as Santa for Nerds. That's my other job. I'm a designer and fabricator of custom collectibles for companies like Disney, Universal, but also for people all around the world. And when doing that, I started getting asked a lot of questions. I was on Twitch for a while. I don't know if you're familiar with the platform, but most of us are. And I was a creative on Twitch, not a gamer. And so I would sit at my desk for about 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and just make art and then talk to people. And what I found was that there was a lot of creatives out there who really wanted to have a business and had no idea what they were doing. And so I would answer the questions as best I could. And I did that for about 6 years. And then what I realized is that a lot of creatives don't understand business at all. And when you start talking in business terminology, it's just right over their head. It doesn't mesh. And I was actually working with a client and they were gamers. One of the guys in the business actually used to work for World of Warcraft, like Blizzard. And then they were running a company where they manufactured little dragons and they were just selling dragons to everybody. And they had been in business for about 13 years, but they were grossing a lot of money, but not netting anything. And they brought me in to see if I could help. And what I realized was that they had zero idea how to be a business, but they really understood the creative side. And unfortunately, that's kind of like been my background as well. Like I've got an MFA and they taught me all the skills. They didn't tell you anything about how to do anything with it. And so I was actually meeting with them in person and we were talking. And I'm like, all right, what does everybody do here in this business? And there's three of them. And they said, oh, we do everything all together. I'm like, well, that's the best way to ruin a business. So let's talk about what your core responsibilities are. And so they told me what each person did. I said, okay, how about tomorrow? And I was just spitballing here. And I was like, oh, let's come back and I'm going to play Dungeons and Dragons Business Edition. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to play a role-playing game. But instead of being like a wizard or a warrior, you're going to be your role in the business. And instead of fighting monsters, we're going to fight challenges that you face in a business. And so we sat down for about 4 or 6 hours and we played. And they had character sheets. They had the whole 9 yards. And we went and every encounter was a monster, but it was like, oh, I'm the scope creep. And I'm going to be the guy who like overtakes all of your time and effort. And you're going to start earning less money. How do you defeat this? And so we sat and played. And then at the end of it, the CEO of the business was like, is this what business is? Because I think I finally understand it and it seems fun. I'm like, yes, it is. And that was kind of the impetus of Gamify Business, was that why are we trying to treat like this business is a language and we all have to learn it. But why do we have to learn a new language? Why don't we just speak it in a language that we already understand? And I realized that most creative people love to game. So why not just take the rules of gaming and apply it to business? And that was really where Gamify Business came about.
What a genius idea, because I fall into that category myself. I'm a creative who my business started kind of on accident. So I was a radio DJ, left that industry, started a podcast, and then just it snowballed into the people I was having on. They wanted a podcast too, but they didn't know how to do it. So then I was doing it for them. And so it just accidentally turned into this business. I never set out to be a business owner, but here I am. And now I sit in on things and people are saying words like scope creep and KPI and ROI. And I'm like, I just want to make podcasts.
Right, exactly. And when you talk about things like, I say ROAS, that's my favorite one. And they're like, is that rodent of unusual size? I'm like, no, that's from Princess Bride, but you're my people. So let's actually figure out what this actually means. And so, yeah, we break all of that term. Like ROAS for me is a great one to explain to people because it's like going to see a bulletin board or like in the town hall, like the town meeting square where people are posting, hey, I'm an adventurer. Do you need me to kill some monsters? And they're like, yeah, okay, I understand that. And I'm like, well, if you paid a gold piece to put it up there and nobody paid you any gold during that month, would you keep putting gold onto that piece of paper? I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, there's your ROAS. That's ROAS in a nutshell. Oh, okay, I get it. So again, we don't need to learn a new language. We just need to understand what the language is, what all that means.
I think that is such a great way to go about it. Just like meeting people where they're at. So is this something you've taken to like a larger scale, like coaching and speaking on this kind of thing? Like what's kind of the progression of like, once you did this once, what did it turn into next?
Basically, I became a consultant. I was started out as a coach But I realized that my heart's not in coaching. My heart is to, like an adventurer, come in, slay the dragon, and then bounce out. You guys are good? All right. So that's really what I want to do. So consulting seems to be where I fit in more with that. So what I do is I meet with companies and say, okay, so I can either do the work for you and then leave, kind of teach you, but my preference is to like educate you, and then you have the skills and the powers to be the hero of your own adventure. That's the goal. And so I have all these books that I've written that sit behind me here, and they all kind of go into a different aspect of business, but it's that translation service. So as a consultant, yes. And then we do the podcast to kind of meet new people who are doing the same adventure and they're like how they achieved it. And then I do workshops and those kind of things. And the workshops are my favorite part because we get to do live versions. So we play Dungeons and Dragons Business Edition is what we do. But we get to actually like create your character, which is you, but then we have classes that everybody gets assigned to, but then we go out and we go looking for group, which is why looks like a tavern, is because when you're playing a role-playing game, where do you meet everybody? At the tavern. And I play the barkeep and also the game master. And so the barkeep actually is the person who has all the knowledge, is the person who's like, oh, okay, but he doesn't want to, he's not the leader, he's not the king of the kingdom. He's just the guy who's got a lot of information. So it's more of, it's dangerous outside, take this, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to lead you through this adventure.
That is so fun. What's your history with Dungeons and Dragons and gaming? Is this something you've done your whole life?
I love when people ask me this question because the answer was I played Dungeons and Dragons between the ages of 8 and 12 and then never picked it up again. I played a lot of video games and that kind of stuff, but I love the idea of role-playing games. Now I have 3 boys of my own and they start growing up, and I'm a storyteller. Obviously, I've got to be able to be in this role. And so I would constantly be telling them stories. And then eventually they're like, hey, let's play some games. And so I just make some stuff up. And that's the great thing about role-playing games, is that you don't have to follow a very strict rule book. You just have to let your players know that there are rules. And it's just like business. It's the same thing. And so now my kids actually, they make up D&D games themselves. But the idea behind role-playing games has been something that I've had since a kid, but it's not something that I actively pursue anymore. I think mostly because it's just so time consuming. I'd rather play video games.
Yeah, video games are easier to pick up and put down when you need to, especially if you're
Correct.
parenting. Like, you got your
Yes.
hands full enough with that, and then to be running all of this on top of it, that's a very full life.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's fun. Now, the way that it translates though, is like for me, role playing, like my life is a role playing game. I love what I do, from being an artist to doing this to, all the ventures that I have in my life. It is an adventure for me, and that's how I like to pursue it, so that it no longer becomes the slog that a lot of people think that business should be. And everything's a role playing game. And so that's the whole point of this, is to show you that this thing that we have to do because we have to earn income, we have to be a productive adult in society, can actually be a game, and it can be fun. And I refer to everything as a game. I walk into business meetings with CEOs and I'm like, okay, what's the game today? They're like, we are a serious business. We don't have time for games. And I'm like, that's where you lost me, because that's not true. We all have time for games. And it's once we remove that and they want us to become robots, that's when humans bounce. We don't want to do that. We want to actually be people who are entertained and enjoying our life, even if we have to do the things that we have to do.
I'm a firm believer that once things stop being fun, or you stop looking forward to doing something, that's your body telling you you're done here. It's time to move
Correct.
on. It's time to find the next fun thing to do. And it's obviously something that you seem to believe in as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's amazing. So, as I was poking around your website, getting to know you through the internet a little bit better, I came across something that you have. It's called the Rule of 100. Would you be willing to explain that to me and my listeners? Because I think this is an interesting
Absolutely.
concept.
So here's the thing, like social media, I'm 50. All right. I may not look 50, but I'm
You
50
don't
years
look
old.
50. If you're
Thank
not
you.
watching the video version, this man looks like he's in his 20s. So,
But I was there when the internet was born. Okay. So that's how old I am. So I've seen social media begin and see where it's at now. And the thing is, social media has kind of ruined us as a people, because it only shows the good, it never shows the grit. And the thing is, business is 99% grit, 1% good. The other thing is, it's teaching us that we need to have millions of people like our stuff to be relevant. And the reality is, if before the internet, before social media, if you had a mom and pop store, you had a brick and mortar, and you were trying to sell stuff, and 1,000,000 people, 1,000 people showed up at your door one day, it would ruin your business, because there's no way you can deal with that many people. So what the Rule of 100 does is it takes that pressure off of you and says you don't need to appeal to 1,000,000 people. And honestly, it's better for your creative based business if you don't. Because when you try to mass appeal, you gray yourself out. You become beige because you're trying to appeal to too many people. Stay in your lane, follow your passion, and then look for 100 people, 100 fans. Those are the people you should be catering to. And I know people fight me on this one a lot as well, because they're like, no, you need to have constantly millions of people liking your videos and stuff. I'm like, I'm not farming likes. I'm trying to find people who want to be clients or customers, as any creative is. And honestly, I'd rather have 100 people who really are passionate about exactly what it is I'm trying to do, rather than me trying to appeal to a ton of people. And I can kind of maybe help some of them sometimes. And so what the rule of 100 says is just go out there and look for 100 people. So when you post your social media and you're like, oh, I've hit the 300 cap, you've now got 3 times the amount of people you technically need to appeal to. So you're doing something correct. And so keep doing that. And once you do it enough on social media, what happens is the people who need you find you. And then everything, if you stuck with who you are, you follow that passion, those people are like, this person gets me. This person is selling exactly what I need. And then you don't have to work at it. Like, the idea isn't to sell. I literally have a book called Quit Selling Your Shit. And it's like, quit selling your shit, sell yourself. And that's what every creative should be really doing. And if you're honest with who you are and you follow that passion, then those people will be like, you're not trying to sell your shit to them. You're just trying to say who you are, and then they will come to you. And it's the best way to do it. And then 100 people constantly revolving through your business, you're not going to be a multi-millionaire. Okay. But honestly, a lot of people aren't. Most people aren't. But what you want to be is comfortable and happy. And I think we lose a lot of that. Again, social media is telling us, no, we need to be driving Lamborghinis and flying to Milan every weekend or whatever. But the reality is, I want to not have to worry about putting food on my plate and paying my mortgage. That's really, and that's what we want as a consistent business. And if you follow that passion, you follow that idea, at the end of the day, you're like, I never sold out. I was who I was, and I made a living, and I was happy and successful. Who doesn't want that? So that's the rule of 100.
I love that. As someone who I crested the 10,000 followers mark on TikTok in January, and I'm like, this is it. It's my big break. And then I've been like stuck in like 300 view jail ever since.
Yeah.
But guess what? The needle is still moving on my business. I still keep getting more clients. I still keep getting people contacting me because they saw my TikToks. So yeah, am I making a bajillion dollars by making content on the internet? No, but what it is doing is it's constantly feeding my business, even though I'm stuck in 300 view jail. So I love that rule of 100. That's going to be something I'm going to be using with my own clients from here on out, especially with the world of podcasting. As you know, when you first start out, it's kind of a slow burn to get those first listeners. You're integrating into their ecosystem, they're coming into your ecosystem. It's hard to build that audience right away, but once you have them, they are so loyal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like, if you wanted to have, we talk about 300 jail. I mean, everybody knows what that is. If you're in social media, you know what that is. And that's where the algorithm quits doing organic growth. Okay, fine. But like, I'm not looking for sponsorship, because again, that's going to muddle out my message. I'm not selling advertisements. If that was my business, then obviously that's what I would be aiming for. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help creatives build a business and understand what they're doing. So I don't need to worry about all those metrics. I just need to stay visible. And that's a thing that a lot of creatives, again, quit selling your shit, sell yourself. It's that they want to hide behind the work and say, my work is going to speak for me. And it's like, the reality is nobody knows you exist. And it's mean to say that, but it's the truth. And so what you have to do is you have to stay relevant by putting yourself out there. It's just taking that pressure off of you that you have to be viral at the same time. Occasionally you can have a viral hit. Great. And that's what I want people to understand, is that 300 jail is 3 times what you need. Okay. Your people are still watching you. 300 people have watched this. Okay, cool. Can I convert one of them to a customer? Well, okay, sure. Yeah. No, do I have to do it by pressure selling them, by having some whatever BS that you're trying to put? No, be you. Because here's the other thing, like, honestly, and I hate to like spill these beans because the reality is kind of bleak, but the reality is, when you high pressure sell someone, they're not going to do the work. They may buy into it. And trust me, I've fallen into this trap myself. I'll pay the money, I'll kind of like half go through the work, whatever, and then I let it go as soon as the contract is up. What you're trying to do is build a relationship so that the person has trust in you, so that when you are speaking directly to them, so when the opportunity arises for them to do the work and they hire you, they're already sold. You don't have to do anything else. Just give them the hints, the tips, the tricks, and help them navigate. And then they're going to do that from that point on. You just said it yourself. That rule of 100 makes a hell of a lot of sense. We're going to use that forever. Awesome. Great. I did my work. I didn't try to sell you a book. I'd like to, but it's not the point here. You just want to try and keep that needle moving forward with people who are truly invested in your business.
Yes, it makes complete sense. So I kind of want to get into, you have a podcast. You used to be a Twitcher. Is that the term for it? Person who streams on Twitch. So
Sure.
Is that how you initially started, and then the podcast came later, or what was kind of your progression with that?
Oh, I've had so many podcasts, Abby, over the years. So my first one was The Maker Men, and it was 4 guys sitting around around and people would just like try to stump us on how to make things because that's literally what the business was. And then I have a podcast right now that I've been doing for almost 14 years called Tales from the Front Porch. It's just me and a buddy of mine. We just sit and we tell jokes, and it's a comedy, chat show. And then eventually for this one, I created Gamify Business because I was doing shorts, I was doing TikTok, I was doing all those things. And I'm like, but honestly, my journey is cool, but I'm trying to play the barkeep. I don't want to be the leader. So let me start bringing in people. I give like little mini-sodes, which are like the cool tips and tricks about the business side of it. But then I bring in cool people. I create an entire story around them, how they are an adventurer within the world of Gamify. And then I talk about the monsters that they defeated. And then we go into an in-depth conversation with the adventurers that are out there actually doing the work. And so that's really what this was about, because again, trying to not be the star, I'm just trying to be the help, the service person.
I listened to the most recent 2 episodes of that, and it's so good. I love the concept for that. And I love that it's literally just you doing what you do for your business, but in podcast form. Like, I think it's such a natural fit. And I love seeing things like that. I just nerd out about it so hard.
I think that's an important thing for anybody who's running a podcast. Is like, honestly, I like to meet cool people. What's the best way to meet cool people is to have them come in and tell you about themselves. Okay, cool. Like a lot of times my interviews like go long, but we cut it at an hour and then we just sit and chat. Because honestly, I'm more interested in them as a person. It's like the interview's cool. Everybody gets something out of it, but I just really want to meet some cool people. And that's how people should approach their own podcast. It's like, if you're just there to make money, one, podcast is not the way to do it. Go find any other job. But the other thing is, if it's just a machine for you, it's not really doing much, then why do it? It should be the backbone of your business and it should be an example of it. I just had to turn down a lady today because she's like, I want you to be on my podcast, but all I do is sell myself on my podcast. And then I'm going to break down who you are and then sell my services to you. And I'm like, that could be an email and I'm not really interested. And so for me, I'd rather, why don't you come in and play a game with me, be an adventurer, be a better version of you, a heightened version of you for an hour, and then have a good conversation. And then that really also demonstrates to my listeners how this process works. And so like, and you may not be a gamer. And I've had a lot of customer or clients who are not gamers. And like, I don't play D&D, but I'm like, well, come into my world for a minute. Let me explain things to you. And there's a psychology behind the entire thing, which is the removal of ego. Because I don't know if you know, but every solopreneur or entrepreneur I know is completely flawless. They never make mistakes. They don't do anything wrong, which we all know is a lie, but they have to put on that shield and that armor.
I'm perfect. I don't know what accountants talking about. I'm perfect.
Exactly that. And so that's the whole point. And so I'm like, when we do the character sheets, the first thing we do is I'm like, I want you to create a character, but that character is you in this world. Because if I ask you, hey, Abby, what are the 3 biggest flaws that you have as a business owner? You'd be like, I don't have no flaws, but I'm like, what does your character, Abby, have as flaws? Oh, well, I hate marketing. I hate doing this. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. The idea isn't to pick out your flaws and poke at them. It's to say, okay, these are the things that we need to either develop or find a party member who balances that out. And you're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. Exactly. So again, demonstrating that via a podcast, so they're not scared, even if they may not be a gamer or whatever. They're like, this is an interesting take on business, which, if you've ever tried to study business is boring. So I'm like, okay, so you want to have some fun with it? Let's try something different. And that's really the whole point of it.
I think it's so much fun. I love this approach to it because, like you said, business is boring to learn. I've tried taking some online courses of how I should actually be structuring things. Yeah, you pay for it and it's like, I am not doing that. That sounds horrible. And I'm falling asleep watching these modules online and I don't want to be here, even though I gave you money to do this. Like, this concept of turning it into a game and making it engaging and having a little bit of imagination to it makes so much more sense.
Now, instead of sitting through a module where there's a talking head, which I hate talking head videos, that just drones on for 10 minutes and they're like, okay, now do this worksheet of just regurgitate everything you just heard for 5 minutes. What if I instead said, hey, I want you to follow this link. You're going to play a video game for about 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, why? I'm like, yeah, just play it. And at the end, I said, okay, this actually taught you something in business. And you're like, it did. And it made sense because it was a game, but I wasn't under the pressure of having to learn. I just had to come to play. I was like, of course, that's going to open up your eyes to more stuff. I mean, think about how many video games or board games that we sit down, we're like, we'll read through the rules or we play the starting areas and then, put 99 or 100% games or whatever. Like, if we ever applied like 30, 40% of that into our real life, we would be so much further along. But real life is boring, like our day to day. I come from theater. That's my background. Obviously, you can that. So like in theater, when you watch a play, it's not the normal day. It's a highlight day. That's what a play is, like the important moments of a thing. Because if people saw like actor walk out, go to the bathroom first thing in the morning, brush their teeth, kind of wander around for 40 minutes before getting dressed, it'd be boring. And that's the reality of business. Let's make it more fun and then show highlights of it. And then we don't need to worry about the monotony part. That falls in later and you kind of deal with it on your own.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I love everything you got going on. And one of the really cool things that I saw is that you have a quiz that people can take to kind of help get this whole thing started. So tell me about this really cool quiz on your website.
Okay, so the quiz is a business personality quiz, but I don't like to call it that. It's basically your introduction to the tavern. And what you do is you go in and it asks 36 questions, and that's really all it is. But it needs to be 36 questions because when we do less, you don't get an accurate depiction. But in it, it's a game. And so you see me as the barkeep just sitting there talking to you and telling you to do these and asks you questions about how you think about business. And then what it does is it actually breaks you down into 6 different categories. And the categories we have named like warrior or wizard, artificer, and that's where you fall into as a group. But what that is actually a personality that you have for business and why it's important that you understand this. And then when you take the quiz at the end, you get sent an 11 to 14 page deep dive into your personality through the eye of the barkeep. So it's not boring to read. It's actually interesting, but nothing else. Like I don't even try to sell you. You don't even have to sign up for our newsletter. I mean, it's an option, but you don't even have to do it. Like it's literally me just giving it to you for free because I want you to be educated on who you are, because understanding yourself is going to be the first step to really being successful in your business. But then the key to it is the reason we do the classes into like wizard or artificer is because I want you to understand that each of those has a strength and a weakness, but there is a counter person, another class that balances you out perfectly. So even if you can't have a party of 5, which would be the ideal group for hunting, you want to at least have one person that you can fall back onto. Even if you're a solopreneur, having a person in your pocket is good to help you balance out. When you're done with the quiz, it says, okay, this is who you are, but what you want to find is this, because that person, the two of you are going to be a wonder power all the way through. So your venturing can't stop. So that's what the quiz is.
I'm super excited to take it, figure out what I am, and then send it to my friend who's also a solopreneur. And we call each other our coworkers because we're both self-employed, but we seem to work well together. But I would love to know which class we fall into just to see if it's actually helping each other or if we're just two people doing the same thing and hoping for the best.
And that's with the creatives. That's what I've actually found to be the most true is that creatives love to surround themselves with people who are very much like them. But the problem is if you have 5 warriors going into battle, you're going to wipe because you need a healer. You need a DPS. You need somebody who's going to strategize. It can't just be the person running out in front. And so what we find is that they're like, oh, like warrior is my favorite of the groupings because it is literally the solo person. It's the person who charges out and is like, I can do anything. But the problem is they don't know how to do anything. They just fake it because they're out in front. So their ideal counter is the ranger, who is the strategist, who sits behind them. So I like to say to people is when they get the warrior card, I'm like, you're the warrior. You're great. You love to go out there. You're at the forefront. You're going to, we can do it. We can do it. We can do it. Can we do it? And you're turning to the ranger. And the ranger's like, yeah, we got this, boss. But the ranger doesn't want to lead. The ranger is there to clean up the messes. And so that's why you need to find that counter. But I find a lot of warriors grouped together because it's bro mentality. There was those guys that you see, doing shots at noon, yelling and high-fiving, but together they can't get anything done. They need rangers. And so that's why this is an important thing to take. And we try to keep it fun and light in the world of Gamify.
Yeah, I'm super excited to take it myself. I'm super excited to send the link to my group of people and be like, okay, everyone take this and send me your results because I have some analyzing to do.
It is fun. And it's a great introduction to these books as well, because once you take the quiz, you're like, oh, this is fun. This is interesting. It's different. What do the books do? Well, the books give you the opportunity to deeper dive into it. Like I've built this entire system so you don't need me because again, a lot of solopreneurs, they're adventurers on their own. They don't want to coach. And so these are self-led books as well as, they can obviously there has depth to it, but every single one of these books talks about my own personal journey. So if I'm ever telling you to do anything, there's a story there that explains why. And usually it's because I effed up really bad somewhere and had to learn a lesson the hard way. And so the idea is to kind of get you through it. Now, this book here, I'm just going to talk about it really briefly here.
No, please
this
do.
Is the first book that I
love
wrote.
this.
This is the Player's Handbook to Business. And this is the first book that I wrote. And this is basically how to create your character. But what I don't tell people is that if you go through this entire book, and it's not that long, and you do the work that's inside of it, when you're done, you have a business plan. And most people say, hey, I got to sit down and write a business plan. It's just 60 pages of BS. And I was like, well, think about all these things. But this one here, it's made for the ADHD brain, the autistic ADHD brain. That's me as well, and my kids. And so what I did is I made sure that it's not the same thing over and over again. So sometimes there's fill in the blank. Sometimes there's short form, long form. There's things that you draw pictures literally inside this book, but all of them come with lessons. And when you're done with it, you've got a business plan, a 90-day plan of action to earn real world money. And then at the end of this book, there are 4 appendices which list out like, well, I don't know where to go. Like, how do I write a letter to the bank to ask for money? It's in here. You know, there's so many links and stuff. So this is really a self-led book that allows you to do all of that stuff while tricking you into actually doing what anytime you go to a bank, they're like, well, where's your business plan? It's like, it's in this book. And there's a workbook that goes with this. You could actually hand in the workbook instead of the actual rigid book. But that's the idea behind it, is to really just make this a game, make it fun, make it a little bit different so that you don't stop 3 questions in or put it off forever. Because, you know, creatives are cloud thinkers, not linear thinkers. So we're like A, B, squirrel, grass, we're all over the place. And so the book is there to help you with that instead of having to sit down and say, okay, I've got to do this task. I got to do this chore. It's like, okay, what's the next thing I have to do to get my character sheet up to par? Yeah, so that's the idea.
That is a immediate add to cart buy now, because I have been told recently, they're like, oh, well, you need a business plan. I'm like, the plan is it's just doing what it needs to do. And they're like, no, you need a business plan. I'm like, but I don't know how to do that.
That's what this does. This is what it covers.
I
Now,
will
I
be
also
looking into that.
please do. And then I have these other 2. We talked about quit selling your shit, which is a very important. It's so important. It's flying off the shelves.
Flying off the shelves.
That's how good that book is. Thank you, Wall. So yeah, we have quit selling your shit, but then the opposite of that, it's quit selling your shit, sell yourself. And a lot of people are like, I don't know how to do that. So there's actually this book over here, which I'm not going to touch because it's going to fly off the shelf too, is The Bard's Guide to Story. And when I wrote, like, both of these books are really quick reads. They're really light. Quit selling your shit is basically the barkeep saying, hey, this is the reason why it's going to fail. This is why it's important to not just sell product. Don't say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Give them a reason to do it. Now, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to tell a story. We all have a story. We've all been to a party and somebody's like, hey, tell us that one story. And we've all got it. It's in our back pocket. And so what the Bard's Guide does is it's actually the bard and the barkeep having a conversation. The barkeep starts off, and then the bard comes in and starts telling the story. And what she does in the book is she's like, tell me your story. And then you write it down. And you're like, okay, now we're going to refine that story over 6 versions. And at the end, you're going to have the best story you've ever told, because there's psychology to storytelling. And so when I tell people, quit selling your shit, sell yourself, the next question is, I don't know how to do that. That's what this book covers. And I sell the Creative Player's Handbook to Business and the workbook as a grouping, so it's cheaper. And then I also sell Quit Selling Your Shit and the Bard's Guide as a group as well, because these books are very much the counter to themselves. I've got another book just coming out probably in the next couple months here. It's about finances. I hate money. I hate it. But I was like, okay, so I had a guest on my podcast, and that's what I love, again, doing the podcast. He's like, can we collaborate? Because he wrote a book on finances for creative-minded people. And it is dry AF. It is so boring. And he's like, I know it's boring, but it's what's necessary. He's like, can you bring it into your world and make it more interesting? So we've been collaborating on it. As he's reading the chapters, he's like, this is such a better book. And I'm like, it's your stuff. It's just sent through a different light. It's that translation service. And so, again, I hate money as much as any other creative. He's like, I'd rather just do the work. I'd let the money do its own thing. And this book actually breaks it down and explains to people why it's necessary. And then my last book, which is coming out at the end of summer, is a monster manual for business, which is all the different monsters with illustrations and all these fun things that go with the monsters and how to defeat them. Okay, that book is just really wants to leave that shelf. So I'm going to pull it off here. And so that one's coming out. I'm illustrating all the images. We're going through, we're actually creating, it looks like a regular monster manual, but it's all these fun monsters that you like, the distractor, which is the ADHD's main nemesis, which has him going everywhere else. And it seems like a bonus, but it's not. And there's traps that we encounter and all these things. So that's the next book that's coming out. So I'm looking forward to that.
I am so excited. I'm literally going to go buy these right now because I think this is so helpful. Like I said, a creative person who is easily distracted. And if you put like the most dry, bland workbook in front of me, or like, here, this will help you write your business plan. It might, but I won't fill it out. So it's not helpful.
Right? Right. I've been there. I've had 3 businesses, and the business plan is the worst part. It truly is, because it's so boring. And I don't want to talk about metrics. I had a client who was an actuary. She basically did books all the time, and she was going to present to Google to get funding for her product. And that was kind of the impetus between the quit selling your shit, because she came to me. She's like, I've got all my numbers. I've got my spreadsheets, and it's really exciting. I'm going to go to Google, and I'm like, this is how much money we can make. I'm like, this is boring. They're not going to give you any money. I said, why did you start this? She's like, well, my parents owned a company, a construction company, and they were having a hard time keeping track of like where all the money was going out because they had all these subcontractors and all this. And so I created this to allow her small business to stay profitable and know what's going on. Like, lead with that story. Mom and dad stories, that's choice. And
everybody loves them.
Yeah, and she did. And then she had the numbers to back it up. And then Google gave her funding. There you go. You know, and so that's the quit selling your shit, sell yourself. And then that's it in practice. And that's really all it comes down to.
Paul, this has been such a fun conversation. I am so glad we got connected on Podmatch, because now I have homework from this podcast that I'm actually looking forward to.
Yay. Great.
If
if you
people
want to
want to
take the
work with you,
quiz,
yes, what are
yes.
the
Okay.
steps to take?
All right. So just go to gamifybusiness.com/quiz. That'll take you right to the quiz. Or if you just go to gamifybusiness.com, you'll see it at the top there. It says take a quiz. And there's giant cards. It's pretty. You can't miss it. But go there and take the quiz. And again, you don't need to sign up for it. I'm not selling you anything because I want you into the world and then want to come back. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, the deep dive that you get gets deeper. But that's only if you want to get emails. I don't spam people because I delete most of the spam that I get. So you get 6 more emails from me over 6 months. That's it. And it's just a, hey, remember me. So yeah, gamifybusiness.com. Again, if you want to check out the podcast, it's Gamify Business Tavern Tales, and it's available all the places that you listen to it. Really fun. It's also on the website, so you can check it out there.
Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I've had just such a wonderful time with you.
Excellent. It's been fun. I love these conversations. It's great. And I love it when people nerd out. That's my favorite thing.
People need to be nerdy about the things that they love because the world would be a better place if we were all just a little more nerdy about the cool things we're doing.
Absolutely. 100%. Well,
Wonderful.
thank you so much, Abby. I really do appreciate it.